completely understand. I see that Liz is okay. Liz is in the building. No, are you there, Liz?
Yes, I'm here. Hey, Piper.
Okay. Hey, hey. All right. Sweet. Okay. So, yeah, just wanted to. I don't know if you got a chance to see Liz the email, but Shay, our beloved organizer Shay, has created this amazing fact sheet, and we wanted to just hone in on a couple of points. They're very simple, but the biggest discrepancies that we have is in the city, and the water department in particular is saying that everything's fixed. Um, People have water, and that there's nothing to worry about, and the activists are inflating the numbers. And so with that, I wanted to go first to our beloved Shay, who wrote our fact sheet. This incredible. First of all, Shay, thank you so much for this fact sheet. Like, if people don't know what this fact sheet is, like, literally, it's over a decade of research, um, blood, sweat, and tears that's gone into a one sheet so that folks can understand um, the depth and the severity of and the length of what's been going on. And so just wanted to shout you out and thank you for that, Shay. That fact sheet is, man, it's incredible. And we have other videos and things that go into like the longer history, so we'll post those on Frontline. But for this conversation, I wanted to hone in on the numbers, because the numbers seems to be where a lot of folks, like, I don't know what you all are experiencing, but when I'm online, folks are really looking at the numbers, like, um and that's what the city is has a discrepancy with as well, is these numbers. So Shay, can you help us understand the numbers to this issue?
Well, I think the biggest thing for people to keep in mind is that any month in the last 6 years, roughly 10,000 Detroiters were without water. And that's by city statistics. That's not something anybody ever disputed. All of a sudden, when we get the turn on order to come, the mayor and his people say, oh, there's only 1,500 homes without water. Now, that's a miracle, because for 6 years that has not been true. And the reason we doubt the mayor this time is because every single thing we know about water, turnoffs, we had to get through Freedom of Information Acts, because the city doesn't tell you anything in a transparent way. So what people need to know is every month from roughly 2015 on, there have been 10,000 households without water, and all the mayor has turned on is 1,500. That means he's done a little better than 10% of the job that needs to be done. And he doesn't make a major effort to turn water on or publicize the number. You have to go through the fine print to find the number to call. And when you find it, it takes you to a link that tells you everything ended April 8th. So there's no real good effort from the city to reach out. They're over it. And so it's up to us to say, what about these other at least 9,000 households?
So what about the, because Frontline, thank you for that, Shay. So Frontline has been, has a street team along with supporting We the People, that's been out there forever, doing the research, getting water to people. What is it about the numbers that, because you've given us like okay, the city says this, and this is what Frontline says. What is it about these numbers that folks need to really, 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 pay attention to with regard to COVID?
Well, the big thing is the best prevention of this disease and the spread of this disease is being able to wash your hands. And if you don't have water, you can't wash your hands. You can't live in a sanitary space. And so it creates the conditions for this disease to spread rapidly for people.
Right. So now I was on the city council calls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on the city council calls, the head of the water department, um, Gary Brown, was saying that they, that they, that the problem is fixed, and that whose noise is that? They're saying that the problem's fixed, and that they have been that they eradicated everything. So when I'm on, I don't know what you guys are experiencing, but like when I'm on social media, I just keep getting hit with people telling me, "Oh, I read it was fixed. I read it was fixed."
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering. I see that Bryce is in here. Welcome, Bryce. Are
Peace,
you there,
peace.
Bryce?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hello, hello.
Deep.
Okay. Yep.
That's good.
Okay. So, with regard to, because you're on the street team, right, Bryce? On the Frontline street team that's been supporting We the People, getting water to people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and Shay just broke down to us the discrepancy between what the city's saying, right? That how it's all good, and what we know to be true on the ground. So as a person, so thank you for that, Shay. And Bryce, as a person who's actually delivering water, um, help us understand the severity of what's going on the ground with regard to people not having water. Because where folks are having problems is they're saying, hey, the governor has to stay as the turn all the water on order, so the water must be turned on. So help us understand what is actually happening on the ground.
In one plain sentence, on the ground, the water is still shut off. Um, there's a thing that we must acknowledge in terms of a governor's order on a state level, and then the responsibility for the city, the municipality, to actually follow that order. So while they're bullshitting, short story, then we are continuing to give direct support to our people, because that's what's been happening since 2014 in a very real way. It's just so straightforward, yo. There are people who continue to be in need of water, regardless to an order. The government of Detroit must follow that order. Instead of following the order, they are doing other things, like continuing to shut off water, which makes our work continue to be essential and continue to be vital. So like, for us, it's real
Wait,
straightforward. You know what I mean?
hold on, Bryce. You said that they're shutting people off.
Yes. Yeah, water continues to
Okay.
be shut off.
Yeah.
Yes, so people are
So
still,
people don't know this, right? People don't know that they're shutting people off of water. I don't think people know that.
believe you on that, because a number of our people just get their information from channel 2, 4, and 7. But shit, even articles are coming out in the free press now because of the work of our people, the work that we've all been doing to uplift these authentic narratives, these true stories about what's happening. It's so undeniable now, and there's so much like irrefutable evidence that people's water remains off and is still being shut off, that even the free press had to join the story. Like, you know what? You know what I mean? We can't just fucking ignore this shit anymore. This is real life. So when you have a conventional mainstream outlet like the free press uplifting this story, and not from like this social commentary, but from a real place, like, yo, this is a real thing, and we are telling all of our readership for the Detroit Free Press, we want to let you know what is actually happening on the ground. That lets, to me, that's a very strong, it's a real thing, and it's a real indicator of what is actually happening on the ground. So yeah, it's just real straightforward for us, yo. We try to talk about it in all kind of academic ways, but the short of it is people who look like us, people who we know are suffering still, even during the water drops. Like, we're doing water drops to different places, and there are folks literally pulling up in their vans and in their cars like, yo, we see these big ass Absol Pura trucks. Can we please have water? And of course the answer is yes. That's the reason why we're getting all these donations. Shout out We the People Detroit. The reason why we're doing all this organizing and mobilizing is to be able to give the water out. It's just very real when people are coming up to you on the street like, can I get some of that water? Because I see this water and we don't have water. So yeah, it's a very real thing. There is no expectation to me that an impotent, you know what I'm saying, city government would actually do what they're supposed to do, which is why we've been doing what we've been doing for the past 6 years. Bottom line is, work needs to be done, and there are people who continue to step up to do the work, and those people happen to be those of us who identify with being on the front line of these issues, who have been on the front line of these issues, as well as those of us who are just in deep solidarity to these issues and to the people who are experiencing it. So yeah, that's really what's popping.
Thank you so much for that, Bryce. That was Bryce Detroit, by the way. Shameless plug. He got a project.
Hey.
Tell us about that real quick, about the project you have, because it's relevant.
No, it is. It's super relevant. So do have a new project out called Structured Water, and it is a really dope 21st century hip hop project. Shout out Entertainment Justice. But in addition to just really being really, really, really dope ass music and this Afrofuturist vision of what new mainstream will be, it's really to start a conversation. Structured Water speaks to our cells in a happy state, in a healthy state. Our cells, the plasma, blood is a form of water. Plasma is a form of water that's structured in particular kind of ways. So it means something for our water to be structured properly. It means healthy, vibrant beings who can sustain themselves. You feel me? And it's a very real thing when we have economic violence, when we have environmental violence that negatively impacts how our cells are structured. When cells are structured incorrectly, we call that cancer. So yeah, like structuring of water, how is water being structured from a municipal standpoint to ensure the livelihood and longevity of us, the majority population of this city? So yeah, structured water is a metaphor.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? But on the surface, it's the future of mainstream music, and it's the intersection of entertainment, art, and social justice. Bottom line.
Right. Look at Babadero coming in with reggae. Shouts out to Frontline Detroit. But speaking of, I see we've got some more folks in the room. I'm gonna ask Mama Monica from We the People of Detroit to come off of mute, please, because what we want to do on this video is just really speak to the gap. There's a huge gap between what is being said, right, in the media and what's being told to people, and then what's really happening on the ground. So this is to fill in that gap right now. We got to fill that gap in for folks. We already talked about, Shay gave us a great understanding about the discrepancy in the numbers between what the water department says and what's actually happening. Bryce gave us a pretty good understanding about that folks are going door to door. Mama Monica, can you please help us understand? Because like what I'm getting is people saying, but the governor got the water on, so everybody's water's on. Nobody water should be off unless they want their water off. So help us understand these barriers, because you explained to me there's are some barriers to people actually being able to have their water on, and I think one of them was something around a fee, and there's some other issues. So can you help us understand, like, what's it like to not have water, and then in this pandemic and be trying to get your water on?
Yes. Thank you, Piper, and thank you so much for all the amazing work that you and so many others have been holding down with Frontline Detroit. And yes, everyone has received information at the national and the state level that there has been an executive order ushered by by the Governor Gretchen Whitmer, that says that there should be restoration of all public municipal water systems. But then to give people some insight as to the complexity of the issue, one is that in the city of Detroit since 2014, you've had over 170,000 households shut off from water. And what you have is you have a lack of accountability and responsibility on behalf of DWSD to track those families, to engage those families, and to really be proactive about restoring those families. So in the middle of a pandemic, prior to the pandemic, you had already had Detroiters dealing with massive water shutoffs to the tune of about 8,000 a month when we were in the middle of the bankruptcy. I think what also gets left out of this narrative is the fact that since 2009, you've had...
Wait, hold on, Mama Monica. Mama, hold on, don't go so fast. Say that fact one more time for people, because that's something, that fact right there that you just gave, that's something people don't know anything about.
They don't know about the shutoffs, the number of shutoffs?
They don't know about the investment. How much investment is in the shutoff? How much of their tax dollars investment in that shutoff? And you kind of spoke to that for a minute. I don't really think folks know that.
Oh yes, we're spending millions of dollars. As a matter of fact, with just one contractor, the Homrick, which is a demolition company that really isn't prepared to shut off water. A big part of why our water system is damaged and there's been a major delay in getting people restored is you had a demolition company that's used to destroying things, actually going out and destroying the turn-on points of the infrastructure, which means now that has to be repaired before families can be restored. But what we had in 2014 at the height of the bankruptcy, you had about 8,000 households per month being shut off in the city of Detroit. So this was not about being able to make sure that we were investing in our infrastructure, but this was really about weaponizing water to gentrify the city. And so as more and more Detroiters have found it very difficult and challenging to afford their increasing water rates, because water rates, Piper, have actually, they have gone up 400% over the last 20 years. And then within the last 10 years, they've gone up over 120%. So if you look at wages, we are still fighting for a fair wage, which we believe starts at $15 an hour. And what we know is for the average Detroiter, they're paying upwards of 10% of their overall income just to access water and sanitation. Those two things are a direct violation of the United Nations. According to the United Nations, we should not be paying more than 2.5 to 4.6% of our income to access water and sanitation. And I want to say that again.
Hold up, Monica, say those figures. Say those figures for people like myself that might go like, woo! You said some figures, and one of the figures was speaking to how many, shutoffs have happened in the last 10 years. and then, the link to gentrification versus what the United Nations is saying is a human standard. Can you just repeat that for folks, like, more simply, so that it could be a bit more understood?
Sure. What we have is we've got two things happening. You've got an international standard that has been created by the United Nations that says that all persons all around the globe should not be paying more than 2.5 to 4.6%, 4.7% of their income for water and sanitation. The average Detroiter is paying 10% and upwards. And to sort of give people some context, if you look at it just as a pensioner in the city of Detroit, the average pension in Detroit is $19,000 per year. You have on top of that, pensioners have lost 50% of their health care. So they used to pay somewhere in the ballpark of about $150 to about $600 a month to get quality health care. They're now paying anywhere from $500 upward to $3,000 and $4,000 a month to pay for their health care. So if you look at it in the context of the city of Detroit, when you know the demographics, 30% of the city lives in abject poverty. 60% of the city is headed up by majority Black women head of households with anywhere from 2 to 4 children. And 70% of the people that work in the city of Detroit don't live here. So that on its face is a tax drain on the city. So Detroiters are actually not only subsidizing big business in the city of Detroit, but we're subsidizing 126 municipalities and townships, and 83 of them, we are subsidizing the processing of their sewage water. So when you look at that, and you look at the deals that were made on the backs of Detroiters as it relates to the bankruptcy, as it relates to this right now moment of how they are using basically vulture capitalistic approaches. They are using this moment of crisis as a way, while we're distracted with the disease, this has become another way for them to rob the coffers and actually commandeer other assets away from the residents, not only in Detroit, but other places across the country. And so we really have to help people understand this in context to the fact that Detroit has been the canary in the mine. We have been the epicenter for unaffordable water rates. But when you go around the Great Lakes, what you will find is in Chicago, 3.5 hours away, their water rates have tripled in the last 8 years. If you go south, 45 minutes away to Toledo, water rates there have doubled in the last 90 days. If you go to Flint, another 45 minutes north of here, you will find that right before COVID, they were on pace to see their water rates double in the next 60 days. And so when you wrap all of this together, what we have, Piper, is we have the increasing inability for people to afford their water. And based on work done by Dr. Elizabeth Mack, we're looking at, by the year 2022, initially she had said about 36% of the nation will not be able to afford their water. Now the predictions are closer to about 50 to 60% of the nation will not be able to afford their water. So for us in Detroit, the message has never changed. This has not been about just unaffordable water, but this has been about the human right to water. And so that is the rock we're standing on. We've been unwavering in that stance for that human right, and we believe that affordable water is a part of that. I'd also like to just make sure people know that the International Joint Commission of the Great Lakes in October actually added water affordability to their binational agenda. And for folks that don't understand what that entity does, it is the governing body for all of the Great Lakes. And so it's a critical part of not only keeping an eye on the science, but also the policies that are pertaining to land and water rights. And so we believe water has a right to be. It doesn't need to ask our permission to be. That means be unharmed, be unblocked, be uncontaminated. But at the same time, right now in this moment, we've got to triage it and make sure that our neighbors and our friends have access to water relief while we're fighting to get water restored.
Thank you for that, Mama Monica. Don't go away. Baba Darrell, are you there? Let me see. You there, Baba Daryl? Can you come off of mute real quick while we wait for Baba Daryl Jordan? He's the executive director of East Michigan Environmental Action Council. So while he's coming off of mute, maybe I'll take it over here to Jeezy God. Can you help us? Because I know I've been in conversations with people and we just heard all of this amazing information that Mama Monica Lewis Patrick from We the People of Detroit just gave us. So thank you for that, Mama Monica. Jeezy God, come off of mute for a minute while we wait on Baba Daryl. Because people, when I'm places, I've been to different places, and unfortunately, people have said to me stuff like, water is a human right. Where they do that at? And Mama Monica just spoke to the United Nations and just spoke to water being a human right, which at Frontline is a principle for us, and we all here agree and believe. Can you help us understand, for those who are like, you know, what are you talking about? Water is a human right. Can you help us understand that?
Mm. Yeah, I really appreciate everything that Mama Monica was just sharing. Like, it really hit home for me. Like, water has a right to be, right? Like, as an Indigenous person too, I'm an Anishinaabe, and like we know that water has a spirit, and water, you know, she has her rights too. And people should all have access to clean water so that we can survive. We're all made of water, and we should have access to that. And it is so sad that water has become privatized and that we are disconnected from the fact that water does have that spiritual connection with us, that we have an actual relationship with her to be able to live and thrive as a people. And yeah, I also love how she was saying that we are, you know, bringing water relief as we're fighting for access to that water as a human right, right? So I think for me, I see it in the spirit of people. Like, I've been helping with the water shifts, and when I see a woman come and pick up her water and she is crying with joy, right? Those tears, also water, like coming out her eyes because she is so happy to get access to what she needs for her family to live, and especially during a time of a pandemic. It is a small bit of relief for one household, and we have so much work to do, but these waterways need to be free. This infrastructure, you know, since settler colonialism has come and like built these infrastructures, it has always been exploitative of the resources, and it has not been, you know, put in place for people to have that access to what we need and what we have a right to be in relation with. So I think that's what comes to mind for me when I think of water as a human right. It absolutely is. We are all water, free the lands, and let it flow to all the people who need it.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, free the water, free the land. Baba Daryl, your phone's unmuted now.
Yeah.
You've been out there as well, delivering water. You know, doing shifts on the street team. You're the executive director of East Michigan Environmental Action Council, and you also talked the other day about, you know, there's like a form that folks have to fill out. It's confusing, and then there's like the fee is confusing. Uh, Break that down.
Well, the governor went over the mayor's head and said all the water cut on, but everything is so slow. They're taking their time getting all the water back on, and some of them, they don't even know whose water is off. There are people who are living in houses right now who don't have water, and part of the reason is because they are just there with their children and stuff. They don't have nowhere to go. And we don't know where they are because they're scared to tell people where they are because they don't trust the city. And I should say, I know you asked me a specific question, but I want to say this. You know, this water war goes all the way back to when Coleman Young was elected. After he was elected in '74, then all of those cities that we were giving water to started to act up under the leadership of Brooks Patterson. And then it took a long time and a bankruptcy but they managed to get control of the Detroit Water Company, even though the people of Detroit owns the water company. I think that means something, because Coleman Young said, don't let them take the water. I mean, you know, and then even before the pandemic started, let's talk real stuff. Detroit had the highest level of hepatitis A in the country, which means that having water in your house was not just an issue about could you afford to have water, but it was a health issue already. And now it's a serious health issue, and there is no reason why we should be cutting people's water off and leaving them there to catch who knows what, the virus and everything else. You know, this is genocide, you know, and I'm going to stop there while I'm still behaving, Piper. You're doing a great job.
I think what we want to do as well, so thank you for everyone that's presented so far. I think part of the reason is we do have a petition. I know folks are like, you know, confused about the purpose of a petition. We do have a stronger statement as well, but the purpose of our petition is to move, right? To move our city officials to act. This is just one tool that we have in our tool belt, and part of the reason for this whole gathering is we want folks to sign that petition. So we've got the petition on moveon.org right now. It's the Frontline Detroit Turn the Water On, and we want folks to sign that petition. We're looking for 2,000 signatures. While all of us really care passionately about Detroiters, about humans, about Black people, about poor people, about unhoused, about folks with disabilities, about Indigenous folks, about queer folks, about our elders, about our youth. I mean, while we're really passionate about our people, one of the narratives that I hear all the time, and it's been here for a long time, is those Negroes should have paid their bill. I need somebody, I know your phone is dying, Barbadero, but please, what do you say to people that say those Negroes should have paid their bill?
I would say that they should keep their mouth closed.
Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me? Oh, Lord.
We hear you.
No, we need to tell
Yeah, we hear you good.
Okay, we need to tell people to shut that stuff up. That's what the mayor used to say. And those folks, they used to say, oh, those folks in Detroit, they rather pay their cable bill than pay their water bill. Well, hold on. If you don't have cable, that don't kill you. But if you don't have water, that could be the thing that kills you right now. We need to stop this silliness and understand that the issues in Detroit is not just about water and the people. This is about greedy corporations and greedy politicians trying to make a deal so that they can have the Detroit water system and do what they want to with it. Nestle's company gets free water. And some little sister over here on the east side with maybe 3 or 4 kids, she ain't got no water because she couldn't pay $200 and some maybe. And Nestle company get hundreds of thousands of gallons of water every day free, I think. So they might even get more than that. This is ridiculous. This is supposed to be about people, people's health, and making the world a better place. This is environmental racism. This is bullshit. This is just a mess. You know, rise up. Fuck this shit. It's time to just get up, do something. Sign the petition, share the petition with your friends, send it to people you haven't spoke to in a while. We in this quarantine, you know, you might be able to break some ice and talk to some family members or friends you ain't talked to in 10 years. But get this petition everywhere, because this is an issue of life and death in Detroit. This is genocide. All right, Piper.
So
okay?
I know your phone is dying. That's Barbadero Jordan, the executive director of East Michigan Environmental Action Council, aka EMEAC, Black-led environmental justice organization. With that, I know that, you know, for those of us that do this work a lot, we hear these facts a lot, and so for us, we keep hearing the facts, and you know, it may seem like, oh my God, I say this thing over and over again, but I will come back to you, Mama Monica, and because, like I said, Shay made such an amazing fact sheet based off of all the research that had been done with We the People. there's a fact that's being disputed, and Shay spoke to it, but I want to go back to it because people learn through repetition. And I think, we're going to repeat this because these are the parts right here that we want to hone into people. This 10,000 number versus this 1,500 number. Shay spoke to it, but I wanted you to get a chance to jump in on it, Mama Monica.
Well, one,
Are you there, Monica? Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Mama Monica. There you go.
Yeah, the one of the key things that we've got to remind folks is that the city of Detroit was legislated in 1955 to build out this massive infrastructure that provides water to about 40% of the state of Michigan. But they were not responsible to participate and carry their fair share of the debt. So when you look at 126 municipalities and townships, about 3.8 million Michiganders drink from a well that the residents of Detroit built. Hello?
There you go. You're unmuted now.
Yes. And so when you look at in the city of Detroit, we have built this infrastructure. We were legislated by the state of Michigan to build it in 1955. And so it has been a burden on the backs of Detroiters for decades. But as Baba Darrell so eloquently stated, up under the leadership of the great Coleman Alexander Young, one of the things that they figured out very quickly as they were abandoning the city and white flight was leaving the city to go to the suburbs. Hello?
We hear you.
Okay. As they were leaving to go to the suburbs, one of the things they figured out very quickly is they needed water. But one of the things that we were legislated at the state level to do is that you cannot sell water to a municipal customer for more than what it costs to purify, clarify, and distribute the water. So they didn't have to pay for the infrastructure, just the processing and distribution of the water. Well, what they're doing is at their local levels, they are getting water from Detroit wholesale, but they are marking it up at the local level anywhere from 100 to 1,000%. And then part of that conversation gets very racialized around the fact that Detroit is gouging them when it's their own municipalities gouging them. So we've got to set that record straight. And then the other thing that I would do is I would continue to lift up the fact that when you look around the region and across the nation, water affordability is not just an issue in Detroit. It's just been an issue in Detroit longer than it's been other places. But what we've been critical in doing is we have created a model that the rest of the country and the world is looking to as a way to bake in equity and justice in terms of a good policy for creating clean, safe, and affordable access to water. Before the pandemic, there was no pathway for a person, once their water was turned off, unless you came up with all the cash, you just could not get your water on. And Baba Darrell will tell you, he's been delivering to some of these same families. We, the people of Detroit, has delivered for the last 6.5 years to families that have had no other way to get their water restored. And so now the pipes are destroyed and they don't even have the infrastructure to connect to the water system. And all of us know somebody. There's no way you've been in Detroit 10 years and you don't know someone that's been in some level of struggle around accessing their water. What I would say to all of those naysayers, I would like for them to join me in one day of living and doing all that you do without access to water.
So with that, thank you for that, Mama Monica. So with that, I got a couple more questions. They're nuggety type questions. I'm gonna toss one to Bryce Detroit. So we're looking at, you deliver water to people. How was it like? You know what I mean? To have, I don't know, a day of water. Is that like, how many bottles of water is it? You know what I mean? Like for a day, and then how much water are y'all delivering? And is it like enough for the day, enough for the week? And then how often are y'all delivering the water? And this is to give people an understanding, because I don't really think people, like when people say somebody's water's cut off, right? I don't think that people really understand. Like Mama Monica just told us, you've got to clean yourself. You got to cook. You got to drink. You may have a baby, right? That needs to be changed, or an elder that needs to be changed, or you may be an essential worker and you've got to go to the grocery store now, or clean a hospital. About what does this look like as a person on the ground delivering water? Like, how much water do you have to deliver? And we're talking bottled water. I want people to understand we're talking about delivering bottled water. People are used to having understand what is it like, this bottled water, right?
Yeah. So boom, can jump in real quick. So first off, we're looking at this factoid where an average person needs 3 to 5 gallons of water, period, a day, and that's between consumption and just use, cleaning use, cooking use. Another thing that's important to me for us to name is that the statistics around the water shutoffs that our water warriors have been diligently compiling, this research and this data, the terms that we tend to speak of are households. So 10,000 households without water. Yet there's usually more than one person in the household. We're talking about, on average, 3 people per household. So 8,000 houses that were being shut off like every week, that's 24,000 people without water. So we're talking about 24,000 people on average who need between 3 and 5 gallons apiece in order to have the quote unquote daily amount of water consumption. The fact that water is coming in bottles, that is a very real thing. Just want to have the listeners imagine for a moment. Imagine that on Monday, what's today? Today's Wednesday. So imagine Wednesday, you're taking your showers as normal. You're turning on your faucets. The water's coming out like regular. You know what I mean? Just going about your merry damn way, not even thinking about shit. You wake up Thursday morning, there's absolutely 0 water coming out of your faucet, period. None of the faucets. Yet you need to take a shower because you have to clean your body for work. You have 2 other people in your house that also need to take showers. What happens though is you have a water warrior who knocks on your door on Thursday because they found out that you don't have any water, and they drop off 7 cases of water in 16-ounce bottles. Imagine yourself having to negotiate a 16-ounce bottle of water at a time to wash your body, when on an average, cats are going through at least 20 gallons of water in like a 3 to 5 minute shower. And we're talking about now having to negotiate these bottles, these 16-ounce bottles, not just for drinking, because sometimes folks just, when some people compartmentalize these conversations in such a way to where they do not imagine what daily water consumption actually means. And it's like narrowly looking at drinking the water. But no, imagine how many bottles it would take if you have to create a bath with 16-ounce bottles of water. If you're fortunate enough to still have the gas on, you need to warm the water up for maybe a baby or maybe just for your own self. So now we're talking about pouring 16-ounce bottles of water into a bathtub one at a time in order to create a bathtub situation. The point of me asking folks to just take a moment and imagine is so that we can really get a picture of what it looks like to have to negotiate bottles of water at a time just to meet your needs, your daily consumption needs, as well as your family's needs that are more than just drinking the water. That is what it's like to be delivering bottles of water, knowing that the most that we're giving people, hopefully it's a day or two. Hopefully it's a day or two. Our peoples are out here.
To like, you know, a case, or, you know, what's it like? How many bottles are you? And then when you say a day or two, because I'm thinking like, you know, people might be thinking of their personal self, right? Like people, like you said, might have a family, right? Might be 4 or 5 people in the home. So what, when you say a day or two, like help us understand what.
So when Bryce is saying a day or two, I'm saying like, hopefully they will be able to stretch this water over the necessities of drinking, cooking, cleaning their bodies, plus cleaning whatever else that has to happen in the house. Like we have to remind ourselves that to wash our dishes takes water. To flush a toilet takes water. We know sometimes like how, well, some of us have experienced on some shit where it's like you might have a bucket of water that you was mopping the floor with, and you might have just used the bathroom. So it's like, all right, bet. Instead of flushing the toilet, your mama be like, you better put that mop water down that damn toilet. Don't be wasting no water. So like you dump the bucket water into the toilet, and in order to flush it, like the pressure of the water from the bucket will flush the toilet. That is how some people have to flush their toilet. They have to use the bottled water just to flush the toilet. It takes more than 16 ounces of water to create the pressure of that pump in order to flush the toilet. So we're talking about drinking the water, cooking with the water, washing your ass with the water, plus washing dishes, clothes, and the household in general. So yeah, like the prayer is that 7 cases for a family of 4 people, 7 or 8 cases. The prayer is that lasts 2 or 3 days. A prayer. Folks are having to adapt. Let me uplift this from a really strong, affirming standpoint. Some of the realest innovation and some of the realest ingenuity and technology is happening amongst the people who are experiencing these issues. Folks are figuring, engineering ways to work with the water that they're being gifted, that they're being given, to do amazing things, to meet all of the household needs, plus have a little bit left over until the next water drop happens. So the real experts in these conversations are the people that we encounter on a regular basis, through the water stations, through the direct water drops, because these are the people who have not only had to engineer ways to make things happen, but actually are at like the you know what I mean? They're like at the apex of water efficiency. Like cats are like, come on, yo, like these should be the people who are who should be hired to manage a new water department in real life. But that was a little sidebar. But yeah, that's what we're talking about though. So when we say, yeah, hopefully this lasts a couple of days, it's because we know that our people have to meet an entire household worth of needs. Clothing, feeding each other, cooking with the water, drinking the water, cleaning our bodies with the water, plus cleaning our house with the water. Any one of these things compromise creates a health risk in the house, an immediate one. You can't have your dishes just fucking sitting in your sink for 3 or 4 days unwashed, because mold grows. At the very least, mold grows. At the most, it's attracting things. It's attracting shit that we don't need in our house that threatens our health. We can't go 2 and 3 and 4 days without washing our bodies. We know that men's bodies secrete fluids on a regular basis. We definitely know that our women's bodies secrete fluids on a regular basis. Just a part of a normal functioning body is secreting stuff. We have to have a certain degree of hygiene just to ensure our own basic level of health. So compromising in having to maybe a compromise in not washing our dishes, a compromise in not washing our bodies, a compromise in not drinking enough water at a time in a pandemic where drinking water and washing your hands is the most straightforward and easiest solution to ensuring a basic level of health and security. Compromising on that puts you a million times more at risk than someone else. So yeah, that's what Bryce is meaning when we say, yo, hopefully the water stretches a couple days, because we have the full range of needs that must be met and that people are meeting. And it's not on some old like, yeah, we have, Bryce honors all of the ingenuity and all the engineering. At the same time, this is fucked up that our people have to use our intelligence this way. And we want people to imagine if you fucking had to use all of your strategy and all of your intelligence to make water stretch, water that you're being gifted, not water that's coming out the faucet. Cats be tripping like, damn, this drainage fee is kicking my ass. Well, you still have water coming through the house. Folks are trying to figure out how to manage water that's flowing freely. Imagine folks who are trying to manage water 16 ounces at a time. So boom.
Thank you, Bryce. That makes it. I hope that makes it a lot clearer for folks, because that's what we really want to do, is bring this to the humanity level, so that folks understand. Because we have a lot of stats, and the stats are very helpful. We wanted to get the stats out though, because a lot of folks do ask us for stats. So we did want to get that out there. I think, we Mama Monica, you spoke to this being connected to the international struggle. I know there's a we have our own, struggle here, I'll say in Detroit, which is with our city water department to actually turn the water on, because we have an executive order during this COVID period from our state governor. So we have the petition. So that's one thing that we want folks to sign, is this local petition. Rashida Tlaib, who is the Michigan congresswoman, has a national piece of legislation, and that's the Water is a Human Right Act. And I'm wondering, Mama Monica, can you bring that into this conversation and help folks understand what that's about? Because that's for the entire nation. And I know that you spoke to me about it, but can you break that down for us a little bit so we have a better understanding?
Pipe, can you let me do this? I'd like to actually send you a printout that the Congresswoman sent out, so that you'll have a visual for everyone. So if you can kick that back to me. Really
actually
quickly.
Send it to Paul, because he's doing the. Send it to the mayor. I mean the Reverend.
I will send that to Reverend Paul right now.
Yeah, Paul, if you could throw that up.
Yeah.
While you're
Piper.
While you're getting that up, Paul, Mama Monica, while he's getting that piece up, can you just tell us what the name of the bill is?
It's called the Water is a Human Right Act, and it's being led by U.S. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and Debbie Dingell. But they've also gotten over 80 representatives to sign on. And so it's a powerful moment for a couple of reasons. One, it will be a very huge step in getting the language of water being a human right actually codified into national legislation. So that's an important piece, because that's been a huge part of what we've been battling, not only at the local level, but also at the state level. And I'll just say this, we have been one of the biggest persons really opposing the slowfulness of the governor, but also the very, very slowfulness of the mayor. But the governor really found herself challenged between two pieces, one being the policies that govern the Great Lakes collectively, and then what she had power to do under her executive powers in an emergency situation, and then where there were boundaries in terms of what she could do as it pertains to land and water and things of that nature. So that was some of the complexity. And then you also have to factor in that the mayor was not being straightforward, and still is not being straightforward with how little information and knowledge they have about the tens of thousands of folks. And as Bryce said, we're looking at 20 to 30,000 folks potentially living in the city without water. So that just really needs to be lifted up. But we are grateful for Rashida Tlaib. And in that legislation, she talks about water affordability and a need to be able to create a rate structure. She also talks about the ability to forgive debt. There is a critical need, and this is something that we all can lift up and begin to talk about, is that we need more people across the state, not just in Detroit, but we know that Flint has an affordability issue. We know that there's an affordability issue in Ypsilanti, in Benton Harbor, all up and down that what I call the emergency manager corridor has experienced the inability to afford the necessary investments. But we also have some rural partners, and I spent some time along with some partners across the state talking to farmers and talking to folks in rural communities, because some of what the narrative has been is that this is just Black folks not wanting to pay their fair share. And what it really has been is that the federal government has divested in our water system. They have not put the proper amount of money in, and they really have began to pull money back since 1977. In 1977, the federal government was contributing about 68 to 69% of the money that was invested in our water infrastructure. They now only contribute between 7 and 9%.
Hold up, just repeat that. Repeat those numbers again.
The federal government up until 1977, they contributed about 68 to 69% of the dollars that were invested in maintaining our water infrastructure. They now, today, they only invest between 7 and 9% of the federal budget into water infrastructure, even though all of the research.
So what is that, like a 800% difference? Like,
well, it's a huge
like what? That's like most of it gone.
Because that, well, this is the things too that the family needs to compare it to. When you look at the fact that we have invested over $6 trillion in forever wars, and we need $6 trillion to be invested in our infrastructure in order to bring up the quality of our water and to make that water affordable, and to also green that infrastructure so that we're creating a system that can sustain itself for generations and is actually in concert with the ecosystem and how the water flows naturally. So we don't want to be building a system that is adversarial to water, but is actually a partner with water. And we believe a lot of this is rooted in not only indigenous ways, but also the science is bearing it out. And so some of the work that has been happening, Emily Kudel and Nadia Gabriel have been a part of not only public health work, but also looking at architectural and mapping opportunities to really drill down in how can we take advantage of the fact that Detroit sits on 23% of the world's fresh water. We have one of the best currents in the world for being able to create hydrogen energy. We have the ability actually to generate revenue from our wastewater. So why is it that Detroiters are actually continuing to dig themselves into a pile of debt when they actually could be the captains of their own sail and making money and generating money for others and creating jobs, contracts, and training?
Mama Monica, stick around for a minute. Thank you for that. I want you to speak to water affordability plan, but I want you to speak to that after this. I want to bring on the Reverend Paul of the Church of the Streets to speak to us briefly about the humanizing what it's like living.
Yeah, I mean,
Paul is part of our street team and line leader.
No, I don't. No. I just want to uplift this Wednesday. Day belongs to Oya, which is Orisha, who governs water and vapors that move and move in controversial and strong ways, powerful ways, even violent ways. I want to uplift her as a sister of Oshun, governess of still waters and flowing waters. I want to say To Bryce's point really struck me. I was in the kitchen the other day talking to my mother. She was talking about a time that I didn't really remember that well, but now I kind of remember it. One of the times we got our water shut off as kids. And she was talking about, this was before We the People of Detroit. I wish we had known Mama Monica back then. We were going back and forth to our neighbor's house carrying buckets of water. And it was particularly important because my father was grew food for elders all over the city. He grew peppers, tomatoes, potatoes, herbs, and callaloo for elders. And so it was, it was a stressful time because you're not only negotiating then survival as something that, cleaning and cleansing in the house, but also you can't cook, you can't prepare food, and then you can't grow food. And I know I don't want to get stuck on that point because you got our water shut off, and it was. I remember being at the water department when Dad was this big guy, pleading with these people behind this glass to keep the water on for the weekend, and not getting it, and he worked for the city, so but I don't want to get stuck on that point because we're there. We grew a lot of tomatoes that year. We figured it out. But to Bryce's point, what really strikes me is that being from Detroit at that time and understanding that it had to happen, that we had to have water, that we had to figure out a way to move water, that we borrowed from the neighbors, we were walking around with jugs of water, we were making it happen. And my father the whole time was reminding us that he had survived this way in Jamaica, you know what I mean? And he had carried water, he had gone from well to house, to well to house. His dad was a farmer of massive acreage, a cañero, a cane cutter. So we were he was putting in perspective, yo, you're getting a new understanding of water. And it wasn't to glamorize it, but what he was telling me was that the future was being born in that moment. And now I work at a 7-acre farm in the west side of Detroit, and I help to manage the irrigation system. And what's particular about managing the irrigation systems, I do a lot of the piping. And I work with the water pumps, and we pump water from a rain collection pond, and we pump water up to these massive 2,500 gallon tanks that water crops. And sometimes I tear up when I'm working with it because I remember, my dad managing me with irrigation and being creative and ingenious. And this year, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, Bob and Leek will get me later, but we had our water shut off by the city trying to grow food for Detroit's Black community, and it's been tough navigating it, but those resiliency practices, the water tank is pumped by solar energy, and the pond is bubbled and kept healthy by a windmill. I want to shout out solar. I want to shout out Ali Darul. I want to shout out Baba Hakeem and all the folks who work on that system, and we use that water to water crops to feed Detroit. And so the future is coming forth at this time. Resistance is being planted in the ground. Revolution is being seeded. And I want to uplift that word revolution because in it is the idea of transformation or evolution. And we are transforming at this time. And people who have their water shut off are resisting. And from me going from a kid helping me carry buckets during a water shut off to now working at a farm and being able to manage a water shut off and not trip, revolution and resistance is being seeded. I'm a child of Detroit. I'm a child of diaspora. I'm a child of water. And I say revolution unapologetically because it's either a concession or it's a revolution. Nothing else. There is no in between. Why? Because there's no in between life or death. You're either here or you're an ancestor, and so water is like that. When they look for life on another planet, they don't look for Werners. They don't look for kale. They don't look for books. They don't look for footsteps. They look for water. Water is life. Wheresoever there's life, there's water. There must be water. And so if you take water from people, you've already waged a war. I love when people say, Paul, you got to learn to avoid conflict. America's a conflict. The United States is a conflict. It's a settler colony. Shutting off water is a conflict. So you swing on me and you're telling me not to swing back. But we don't plan to sing our way towards water. We're going to fight for water, and the people are ready to fight for water because it's life or death. And fighting for water looks like those transformative practices. It looks like solar and wind and rainwater collection and filtration and being willing to go there. But we need to understand that when we fight for water, we have to be fearless, we have to be unapologetic, and we have to be understanding that to fight for water is not to start a conflict, but is to actually avoid conflict. It is to preserve life, and it's to love our people. And the only way to love our people begins with water. So I'm uplifting everybody's love for the people. I'm uplifting people who have had their water shut off, so I can speak to that. I'm not ashamed of that. But what I know is that uh, never again will I beg for water. And never again will people have to beg for water if we can get serious and fall in love with each other to the point where we fall in love with water, as a mother, as a caretaker, as a healer, as a cleanser, and do everything in our power to fight for water, as we would fight for one another. And I'm not afraid to say that. I know I had to change my name from Frontline Detroit, so no one will be held accountable for me saying that. But I'll swing on someone for water, and I hope people who are willing to swing for water too, because we're not gonna sing our way to freedom. We're gonna swing our way to freedom, and I'm willing to go there.
So with that, thank you for that. And yeah, with that, I know I've been in places and I had conversations with people about this water affordability plan. I wanted Mama Monica to kind of break down this water affordability plan because there's a misunderstanding. Because people say, oh, the city of Detroit has a water affordability plan, but they don't. They have a water assistance plan. And the water assistance plan basically is not sustainable, right? Because the assistance plan means that it's supposed to give people assistance or support or help or money for when they are unable to pay their bill. But what the water affordability plan does is allows every single person to be able to pay the same percentage, which means that everyone's paying into the system, and those that have more pay more, right? Not because of any moral reason, although we would love for that to be true, but because the percentage, right? If you're going across the board, if they're making more than percentage wise, they would just pay more, but they'd still pay the same percent. As someone, I've had this argument with people saying, I'm not trying to pay for other people's water. So, Mama Monica, help us understand that nuance, and let's dig into that kernel and like expand that piece of information a bit more so that folks really have a clear picture of what the water affordability plan is and like why this is necessary.
Yes, thank you, Piper. This is a critical question. One, just to try to give people context, 10% of the overall budget for DWSD, Detroit Water and Sewage Department, goes to subsidize 83 other communities and townships in Michigan. And I'm pausing because I want you to feel me on this. 10%.
Okay, we're going to take it back, like rewind selector. Take that fact back.
Yes, ma'am. I want you to
rewind. Rewind. What'd you say?
I said 10% of the overall budget for Detroit Water and Sewage Department goes to subsidize an 83-17 split for 83 other cities and townships in Michigan.
Wait, that was a lot of numbers. Say it one more time.
That 10% of Detroit Water and Sewage Department's budget is subsidizing 83 other cities and townships in southeastern Michigan. So with that, what you have is, as we are shutting off people's water in Detroit, many of those communities have policies that say they can't shut off water regardless of how much that person owes. Others have policies that say, we will only shut your water off after you have missed 3 billing cycles. And for those in Detroit that are around my age, or at least in their 40s, you'll recall that water bills in Detroit came every 3 months. And your water bill was probably around $30, $40, $50. Well, now that bill is coming every month, and that bill is now $120, $150. And so in Detroit, we are, as I stated earlier, we are paying retail, and usually when a person owns something, they get a break. Well, in Detroit, we're not getting a break for being the owners of the system. We're actually being penalized for being the owners of the system. And then a break and a discount is being given to the folks that are purchasing water from us. And so with that hardship, you've got a system that was built for 2 million people in the city that is now servicing about 618,000. You have about 178,000 of those persons are young people under the age of 17. And then you have, as I stated before, you have 39% of that population living in abject poverty. So with those kinds of numbers, what you're seeing in Detroit is that the mayor has been very slick and cunning at putting together a marketing strategy that makes you think that Detroiters are being helped, when in actuality, as I stated, we participated in a number of high-level conversations to gather information. And one of the things that came forward from the leadership of Mama Cecily McClellan is that the city had no pathway for persons to get their water restored once water had been shut off. So each year when you were seeing 23,000 to 44,000 households, and as Bryce properly stated, the water department themselves state that about three people per household are in each one of those homes. Then as we were seeing 24,000 and 44,000 households shut off per year, we were also seeing anywhere from a third to a half of those households never returning back to the system. So with those kinds of numbers, I know that We the People of Detroit has been delivering to some families for 3.5, 4 years consistently, because those families have not been able to get their water turned back on. We also know that at the Brightmoor Food Pantry, which sits in one of the largest infant mortality rates in the state, it also sits in the largest water shutoff, concentrated number of water shutoffs in the city. So what you have is a toxic soup of public health impacts that will harm the ability for even a vibrant baby to be born in this city because of the inability to access clean, safe, and affordable water. So a water affordability plan would say that we'll create a tiered-based system. And what that system says is for those persons that are living between 175% to 200% within the federal poverty lines, that those persons would not pay more than 2.5 to 4% for their access to water and sanitation. And what we know this will do, even if you look at DWSD's numbers, Mr. Brown himself has stated that only about 8% of the population, he claims, is struggling to pay their water bills. So if the number is that low and it's only 8%, and we know that it takes $1 million to help 1,000 families in Detroit, then why are we only asking GLEWA for $2.5 million when we know that we need at least $5 to $7 million to do the proper job of giving Detroiters that are struggling the proper support that they need? And so what we still believe is that a big portion of this is about not making rates affordable. And we know that we must make rates affordable, that on the other side of this pandemic, for families that have entered into this $25 agreement, they are going to pay $25 to defer their payment to after the COVID virus is lifted. But what they're agreeing to is to sign on to the debt that's attached to the property that they're residing in. And they're also signing on to the debt that's accrued during the pandemic for all the energy they used during the pandemic. And so when you combine all of that together, and then all of that comes down on those families like a tsunami, many of those families will not be able to withstand what they're going to have to deal with. And that's why we have to start now. We can't wait to envision water affordability on the other side of the pandemic. We must continue the work that has really been spearheaded here in the city of Detroit by Michigan Welfare Rights and People's Water Board and a coalition of great water leaders and thinkers for decades. shout out to Charity Hicks always, that we have a monumental opportunity really to transform the thinking of not only the city and the state, but of the nation, because the whole nation is going to be challenged with the inability to afford water. So we would encourage people to lift water affordability. Water assistance is charity. It says if I have money and I want to give it, I will. But what water affordability says is no, there is a pathway for you that are struggling economically to be able to pay only a percentage of your income to be able to access the water that you need to sustain your health and your proper sanitation and hydration. So we know that water affordability is the pathway to the human right to water, to sustain access to water. It is water liberation. It is freedom. It is the only answer that we know of that's going to get us, especially in our urban centers, what we need to survive.
So thank you for that. But now with the water affordability plan, the question is there a formal plan that's already written that folks could sign on to? That's for you, I think, Mama Monica.
Yes, there is a water affordability plan. There's the 2005 version that has been lifted for years, but then we also were able in 2018 to work on a state level to create a couple of things. One, we got over 60 groups to sign on to a 10-point must-have that is rooted in a grassroots framework of equity and justice for water affordability. And then we were also able to get Roger Colton to do an updated economic analysis of not just Detroit, because we know that we're battling this racialized narrative that they don't want to do anything that's going to benefit the people of Detroit. We asked Roger Colton and the Mott Foundation to actually do an analysis of the entire DWSD system that services all 126 municipalities and townships. And what that data shows is that every city that is on the DWSD/GLEWA system would generate more revenue by actually implementing a water affordability plan. The city of Detroit itself would generate somewhere in the ballpark of about $38 million annually from implementing the Roger Colton 2018 analysis. So we're strongly advocating for this. As I stated, you've seen an international shift around water affordability. And now where we are is you're seeing on a state and a national level, and especially around the Great Lakes, an urgency to provide a pathway to water affordability, because it's not only impacting our inability to access water, it's also moving us out of land and home ownership and control over that land. And it's deeply connected to our voting rights and our ability to be self-governed. So we have to understand how all of those things are tie-barred together.
Well, for speaking of tied together, I just want to tie a couple things together right quick before I bring in the next person. You mentioned Mama Charity. Mama Charity Maymuna Hicks. Want to pour one out for her. Libations, our beloved ancestor. She was murdered on her way, en route actually, to have a meeting with the United Nations to have the Flint and Detroit water crisis declared a human rights violation. And with that was 2014, which was when the main story broke, or when the Flint activists were able to get the story broken about what was going on there. And we talked about how emergency management was really the catalyst or the cause of all of this, and you're tying that to the understanding of the dismantling and destruction of democracy, which we've seen here and experienced here in Detroit for over a decade with the emergency management, which is financial martial law, which halts all of the ability for people who have people that they voted for to be able to make decisions for them. They've seated people in those places to make these financial decisions. And now we're starting to see this same plan that was carried out in Detroit over a decade. This is a part of the national rollout plan that Trump has actually setting forth with regards to moving forward with how structurally is what they're looking at is to like mirror something like this. So I think it's really important that we uplift policy and being involved politically, because I think a lot of times people say things like, you know, I'm not going to participate, which is true. Like the government does not care about us and it's not our system. The whole thing needs destroyed and we need a new system. Yet and still, we're in like this thing called a just transition where we actually still are dependent on this thing called money, and we actually still could have our life disrupted by having our home taken away from having these taxes, disrupt that part of us. But I want us to like kind of, because we do have this petition, and I know I've received a lot of pushback from folks as to like, what is a petition gonna do? Why am I signing a petition? A petition ain't nothing. That don't mean nothing. It ain't gonna do nothing. Help us understand this linkage, like you're talking about, between the life that people are living, how policy impacts them, and the power that people have. Because you spoke about that too. I want to uplift, because a lot of times, many of us feel if we've had our water cut off, we had all these things happen to us, we're unworthy, right? That's the what's taught to us, is we're unworthy. Help us understand what is our power and how are we powerful, and what is our role, right, as citizens, with regard to I'm gonna toss it to you, Mama Monica. Like, help us understand this. Like, if I'm a person that's like, I'm not messing with no petition, like, can you evangelize me, please?
I would say that to help the family understand is that our power is not relegated to just one thing. It really is an interconnected ability to leverage everything. And the reason I say that is that one of my elders and mentors, the great Joanne Watson, told me that we had to legislate, litigate, and agitate, and educate. That you had to do all four of those things simultaneously many times. And so part of what we find ourselves doing, and I love the fact that you guys are using water rights in the podcast as an amazing way to touch other people, to engage them. And I'd love to hear people's recommendations of how to do, to reach other people in some more deeper, effective ways if they have that creative thought process going. But when you put forth a petition is really just a demonstration that you have other people that are in support and solidarity with you, that water is a human right and that there should be an affordable pathway to that water, and that all water must be turned on, specifically in a pandemic, because we're still in a pandemic. I know it's become normalized for some people, but we are still in a full-fledged pandemic. So being in a pandemic, there should have been an automatic understanding that there should not have been a struggle to get the water restored. And so the petition is to keep the pressure on the mayor, because the mayor is the one that is responsible for requesting help from not only the governor, but he is responsible for requesting help from the federal government. He is also responsible for requesting the emergency coordinated relief that you get from FEMA and the state government. So the coordination of all of those things are within his purview. And so if he doesn't do certain things like request and file for emergency relief, which is one of the things Flint did. But of course, one of the struggles is that Flint filed for emergency relief, and many of the grassroots folks and community is complaining that that has given their government, their city and local mayor, more control over what's happening in the city, but less responsibility to report out. What we have found in Detroit is him not seeking that status, it is actually going to prevent us from getting millions of dollars in relief that really could help us in terms of rebuilding and reinvesting in neighborhoods and communities. And so this is about signing on for your cousins that may still find themselves struggling to afford their water bill. This is about signing on if you work in the city and you'd like to be able to make sure that you can assure that you're not being contaminated and taking that contamination home to your family. If you just come and hang out in the city, there's the ability of contamination and interaction there. And so it's all of these ways that as human beings we're interfacing I remind people at the bank, or if you're at a restaurant picking up your food, the person actually that's a service worker still may be going home to a situation where they can't afford their water. So,
I think people need to think about that too. I think that's a very, very, very vivid understanding, because a lot of times in the conversations that I have, when people talk about poor people as the other, um, it's an imagination of some sort of caricature of a person, but they don't really understand that, like, they're coming in contact with with most of the people that are facing this crisis, and they're coming in contact quite often in these places where we call them essential workers. They're providing essential services for the ways that people have been living, unless you live in like the Reverend all over there in Bryce, Detroit, and growing all your own food. You coming in contact with people, so that, like, I want to uplift that, you know what I mean? Like, it's important that you care about people, but understand that you're coming in contact with people, in a really real way. So, thank you for that, Mama Monica.
well,
I'm gonna toss it to you. I'm listening.
people think we're crazy because we're delivering water. They don't understand that this is beyond us delivering water. It is about a really a spiritual calling to be a lifeline to our neighbors and our family. And I really was moved by everything that I've heard, but just deeply touched by Bryce's comments around just making sure that there's a structure to how we're rebuilding water and talking about it metaphorically, but also really working toward the restructuring of water. But then when Paul began to talk about the spirit and the transformation that he himself is experiencing right now, I think that we're all there. And part of what is happening is just you're having to get up every day and be courageous enough to confront what for some people is the fear of the virus, is the constant deaths that we are seeing in our community, is the devastation that we have seen for years, and for some situations for decades, knowing that over 100,000 folks in our city were illegally and unconstitutionally foreclosed on and are bearing about $600 million in debt that they don't owe, and that's beyond water. That's just on our houses and our property. And then you compile that with an illegal and unconstitutional bankruptcy. And then you lay on top of that the closing of over 100 schools. And then you put on top of that the ability to extract from you illegally all of your assets in one form or another.
This is all at the same time. This is not like different decades of stuff. This is like simultaneously.
Right. And so that's why, and I would dearly love if Shay is on to
Just so
jump
folks
in on
understand.
this, because when we were seeing in the bankruptcy that there was a correlation between the fact that the DeVos family was critically involved in the privatization of water, but they also were deeply involved in privatizing transportation globally and involved in the charterizing of public education. And they were investing in not only private water, but private prisons. When you could connect that to the fact that what we were seeing in Puerto Rico with Jones Day being the legal arm for not only the banks, but then many of these huge political actors that are privatizing everything, you couldn't help but sort of send a signal to the family in Puerto Rico, like, y'all, they coming next for you. These were conversations we were having in Detroit in 2014, 2015. There were conversations being headed up at EMEAC with folks in Cochabamba who had already gone through over a decade of struggle from a public system to a private system, back to a public system, because the people stood up, they rose up, and they fought. And then one of the things they did is they instituted a policy, a national policy, that says that 60% of the governance of water has to be women.
Wow.
Because what they saw is under the leadership of women, there was more cooperation, more got done, and more people were helped. More people were taken care of. And we're not saying that
Surprise, 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 surprise. You know, yeah, I shade to that. I shade to that. Mama Monica, help us. We're gonna get off because we've been talking like a long time. But I'm gonna give everyone a last word. But I wanted, we got our hashtags. Well, we always have our hashtag, turn water on. That's our immediate hashtag right now. Turn all the water on. But turn water on. We got keep water on. And we got clean water saves lives. And we have our local petition to the mayor to, do his due diligence and make sure that all water is actually turned on and remove those barriers. And also we have this national piece of legislation that Rashida Tlaib has, the human, what is it called? The Human Rights Act or water. So your last words to everybody, what is it that we need to leave folks with? Like the most important thing that we need to. That's on you, Mama Monica. We the people of Detroit that's been in Detroit doing all this work.
I would just say, just peace and blessings to Frontline Detroit. We are so grateful for all of your leadership. It's been phenomenal just to watch all of your growth and how much you really are pushing us at We the People of Detroit to do more, to be more intentional, more intersectional. And so I just want to express gratitude. One of the things you can do for me is to continue to check on each other, your neighbors, your family members. Make sure that people have water. If they don't have water, I will send to Paul and Piper the number to get out to everyone to be able to contact Wayne Metro. There are multiple programs and services. These are not handouts or charity. This is your money coming back to you through a stimulus package. So we want you to take advantage of it. It's about $8 million in assistance. And so that is one way that we can get active, is getting that information out to people so that our folks can get what they need.
Thank you for that. And for We the People, how do people get, because you got a water hotline and people need to contact you if they need to, need it.
Yeah, for anything that's pertaining to water and water support and assistance and relief, that number is 1-844-42-WATER, 1-844-42-WATER. That's the Detroit Water Rights Hotline. And then if you want to just keep up with We the People of Detroit, we're on social media, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and you can go to our website, We the People of Detroit, and definitely log on. Feel free to donate and definitely let us know if you want to volunteer. So that's wethepeopleofdetroit.com, wethepeopleofdetroit.com.
Okay, and just want to reiterate if you want to donate. If you want to donate. Thank you so much. Rev, you're gonna be last, okay? I'm gonna kick it over to Shay Howell, Bog Center, Freedom School, longtime activist, and just amazing all around human being on this earth. What is the most, like I said, we got our hashtags, turn water on, keep water on, clean water saves lives. We have the petition to the mayor. That's a move on that we want folks to sign. We need the 2,000 signatures. We also have the petition to sign on to get the national piece of legislature. Water is a Human Right Act. What is it that you want to leave us with? What is the most important things that folks need right now?
If people can't sign the petition because the water's shut off, think about the guy who died alone last week in Detroit, who was a bus driver, who had his pension reduced because of the bankruptcy, who couldn't afford his health care because he was paying an outrageous water bill, and how that made him more vulnerable to this kind of attack. And that person deserves your support and your love and 2 seconds to sign a petition.
Thank you, Shay. And you also have a Riverwise magazine, so we want folks to check out Riverwise. Can you just tell us anything about that real quick?
Yeah, Riverwise raises all these issues and will be up probably in 2 weeks. The new edition. And the current edition, you can see Bryce Detroit.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and you have the newsletter as well as a physical copy. So you can go to Frontline, and we're pushing that out. I want to go ahead. Go ahead. What'd you say, Shay?
Podcast, Riverwise podcast. Go to the website.
Oh,
Riverwise Detroit.
Okay, Riverwise Detroit. Check out the podcast. You know, it's a media center. Just want to kick it over. Thank you, Shay. I want to kick it over to Bryce Detroit, the African, and the Detroit African. And you spoke to us about the intersection of art and this work and activism. And you've shown us you have a great project that's out now. And what is the, like we said, we have our hashtags. What is the last thing that people you want to leave?
Boom. So for me, one, want to say that on some 2020, 21st century tip, like this what hip hop look like, yo. You know what I mean? Like this the shit that Spike Lee made movies about, that do the right thing type shit. Like we do, you know what I mean? Like this is that new sexy right here. We creating our own media. We're doing our own narratives. We're broadcasting shit. You know what I mean? So that's one thing, yo. Like, woo, you feel me? Like talking about drip. This that drip right here, yo. We putting on for the culture. This is that hashtag for the culture shit. You feel me? Get out of here, yo. So that's one thing in real life. Another thing is just for us all to appreciate the thing that we're facing when we're saying water is a human right. The implications cut across class. We have people who are most visible, are people who have suffered the violence of water shutoffs while paying their bills type shit. We got to put that on there. It's a lie that our peoples are choosing McDonald's and Comcast over their water. That's not the case. The majority of people whose water has been shut off is because they weren't making the full high-ass payment. It wasn't because they were not paying anything. It's because the city of Detroit determined that what they could afford was not acceptable. So that's some shit. Now, that's one socioeconomic class of people. The way that this water crisis is affecting others of us, though, is drainage fee. It is the fact that, as Monica spoke to, we used to live in a time where water bills came once a quarter. And those water bills, like a high-ass water bill was $50. Like, damn, what y'all doing in the house? Like, that was high, $50. Now we're living in a time where we get water bills once a month, and on average, they're $100. People, and this is like for all my peoples who like appreciate capitalism, appreciate the bag, and appreciate stacking, we're getting our pockets raped. You know what I'm saying? Cats is tapping our pockets unnecessarily, and that is a direct negative impact on our ability to grow generational wealth, to build generational wealth. One way that generational wealth looked like as a resident in Detroit is tax dollars going to pay for and build this dynamic water infrastructure that we once had. The fact that that infrastructure is no longer in our control is pillaging generational wealth from us. And the fact that they think it's cool because of redlining and like on a policy level, we're getting our pockets tapped in ways that just is not what's up. So the more that our system is privatized, then the deeper the impact will be on our pocketbooks. Those of us who can afford, who are affording to pay water, that shit ain't sweet that the bill keeps going up. You can't tell me that it's just like nothing to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, fuck that. Regardless of how much money Bryce got, we don't want to see a bill go up for no reason at all. So just appreciate that we're really all in this together. And to all of our suburban brothers and sisters, the trickle down effect will hit your pockets as well. This is an all or nothing thing. Either we all have an equitable, just water system, or we're all going to feel it in very real ways. So, yeah, that's it.
Thank you for that. And Bryce Detroit, I know you're on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and you have a project that is out. Just name that project because we want folks to purchase that project.
Absolutely. On that entertainment justice tip, the new project is called Structured Water. This is an example of what the future of mainstream music sounds like. You can check that out on every digital outlet where you can stream and purchase content. Definitely holler at me on IG, on Twitter, at Bryce Detroit for some of the most compelling, conversations that's happening in the 21st century. Check me out on Facebook, of course, official Bryce Detroit, as well as the regular personal page, Bryce Detroit. Detroit Recordings, 21st Century Hip Hop, Entertainment Justice. We out here, yo. New narratives, true narratives, new broadcast, People's Media Assembly. That's what it is.
Thank you for that. And then I want to take it to you, Jeezy. You're also a media maker, and you have been, you are a part of Frontline Detroit, and you have been also, going out and taking water to people, and you've also been behind the scenes doing media work and narrative strategy and this kind of thing. We want to uplift that we have the petition. We're looking for 2,000 signatures on moveon.org. We want the mayor to do this due diligence and get this water turned on according to the governor's order. We know we have our hashtags, turn water on, keep water on, and clean water saves lives. What do you want to leave folks with? What's the most important thing that you want to leave folks with?
Oh, goodness. I don't know. I just want to leave the conversation with deep gratitude for just everyone fighting for water rights, for water to be free, for all people to have access to water, all those things, right? Sign the petition. And just be in relation with her. Like, I think that too, like, as we're making media and as we're making stories, like, have fun. Like, she's so joyful. Like, water gives us life, but she's just super fun to like hang out with. So like, I would say, and anyone can do that, right? And I think as we're moving water and these bottled water, like, yeah, it sucks that it's so small, but it also, like, there are people living on reservations that always live like this, like small amounts of water, not because, we just get used to this infrastructure and turning on a tap, but a lot of times, like, there is this relationship that you have to go to a river source, you have to like be with her, and it's very fun, and like we can sing and pray and rejoice and make new forms of media and new ways of interacting with her. So that's what I'm excited about coming up. So expect some new visuals, and I love working with Frontline and everybody organizing. Shout out We the People of Detroit. And if anyone wants to throw down on these water shifts too, hit me up. Peace.
Yeah, because you're on the street team, right?
Yeah, I've been doing some of the coordination. So if anyone wants to throw down, let me know. Get you plugged in.
So just really quickly, because like I'm imagining, like, because a lot of my friends are like, people are supposed to not be in the streets. So just help people understand how you guys are safely delivering this water before you go real quick.
Oh yeah, for sure. So like when we go out there, we're for sure using masks, we're staying 6 feet apart, we're doing this in the most safe way possible, but we know that water is so important to life, and people need this water to stay safe too. So that's why we're out there and dedicated, and we're taking all the precautions. So
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I guess should we give your social media, or you want to just stick with the front line?
if anyone wants to follow me, it's Gijagat. I'll be sharing some visuals on there, and then anything will come through Frontline too. So follow us up.
You gotta spell it for people.
Oh yeah, it's GIIZHIGAD. If you get
Okay,
it, you got it. All right.
Yes. We have to learn Indigenous language. You know, we don't know our Indigenous languages, so thanks for teaching us. Thanks for having
Shout
your
out Wawiatanong, Detroit, and yeah.
And you know what? We didn't do properly and open the stream because we were suffering through some terrible technical difficulties. But we can do it on our exit of the stream because we call Detroit. But can you tell us and spell it too?
Oh, for the name of Detroit? So Detroit's Wawiatanong. That's one of the names for it. She has many names based on riverways, but spelling, I don't know, like I was just thinking about spelling today because it's like Anglo letters to spell words. So just feel the word Wawiatanong, say it to yourself, say it to others, and the spelling is whatever, you know.
Phonetic. We got you. Help me say it. Wawiatanong.
Yep, you got it, Piper.
Okay, cool. Okay, I'm gonna try to make my mouth do that because you know, language, you got to make your mouth do the language, or else you know what I'm saying. You don't really have it. So I'm gonna keep it. And thank you for that. We appreciate it. And then shout out, you know, who your people are. Let's get that shout out for your ancestors. Like who you rep from the ancestors.
I represent Anishinaabe people. Those are my ancestors.
That's what's up. We always gotta shout out our ancestors. You know, they're with us. They guide us. They keep us healthy and safe and protect us. So thanks for letting us know. You know what I'm saying, where we are and who we are. So thank you for that. Now I'm gonna kick it over to the Reverend. He likes to you know, stay in the background. He's the organizer extraordinaire. He is an artist, a graphic designer, a farmer. I would say he's a peacekeeper, but I'd be lying. No, I'm just kidding. But I think I just wanted to shout you out and have you go last because you have a lot of really poignant jewels that I wanted you to close us out with. But right before you speak, I want to give one more time. Our hashtag is turn water on, and also keep water on, and clean water saves lives. We have a petition that we want 2,000 people to sign. We need everyone to send this petition around. We need 2,000 signatures. I think we're around 1,300 right now, so we don't have that far to go. And the petition is on moveon.org. Our organization, well, we're not an organization. We're a coalition. And we call ourselves Frontline Detroit because we are on the front lines. And I wanted to kick it to you. What is it that we should leave this conversation with? And remember, you're the last person because after you, I'm gonna just give the hashtags and the identity. So you get the last word. What is it that you want to leave us with, ground us with, and you know, what is it that folks need to hold with them as we leave this conversation?
Yeah. Yeah, shout out to ancestors. I got just realized I had a painting of Queen Nani over my shoulder. She liberated many people on the island that's known as Jamaica. But I want to shout out a particular ancestor, which is Amilcar Cabral today, African revolutionary. And he had this concept that he was speaking and writing when he was in relationship with the folks in Cuba. And he said something that really resonated with me when I was standing outside of St. Pete's one time talking to Mama Monica. And I'll preface this by saying, as a young person in Detroit, I was kind of rowdy, you know, and like my parents started sending me to these organizing camps further and further away from home. when I was like starting like 14, I'd be going to, I remember this camp I went to on this reservation in Colorado, and like really shifted the way I was thinking about things. But I would still come home and realize like there wasn't a space for me to think through these things. But Amilcar Cabral has resonated with me through the years because I realized that all along I was being prepared for this moment. When I talk about seeding revolution, I mean that all of our work right now is making something possible for some young person that we don't even know is there, who's struggling to find some way to fit in to the society which is really threatening our existence and attacking our young people and limiting all of our freedom. But Amilcar Cabral, he was giving a speech in Cuba, and one time he was talking about how everywhere people struggle for freedom, they have to struggle in the place and time where they're at. They can struggle no other time and no other place, but in the place and time where they're at. He said that's the single most revolutionary thing you can do. It's not to follow this philosopher or this political thinker or this person, but to just get grounded in your place and to get grounded in the time where you're at. Thinking about Grace Lee Boggs, what time is it on the clock of the world? You know, thinking about Shaky Jake, Nation Time, thinking about, you know, all the Black arts movement poets who talked about nation time. What time is it? And one of the things he said was like in his country, which was Guinea-Bissau and Cabo Verde, the two places where he was fighting against the Portuguese, he was realizing that where the Cubans hid in the mountains, where the Vietnamese hid in the jungle, he was thinking about the ways in which the Russians used long, big stretches of land to take people on these marches and to confuse them. He said like, these small island African countries, they didn't have mountains. He said they were pretty flat. They didn't have jungles. It was pretty much a grassland. He said what they had to do was they had to get into a meditative state of where they were and really think through where they were. And he said they discovered that the people would be their mountains, that the people would be their jungle, that the people would be their land and their waterways. He said that the people hid them when they were under attack, taking them into their houses. The people cut down trees so that the oppressive forces couldn't even drive through the streets. The people, he said, raced out to the soldiers with buckets of water so they could get a drink before another battle started up. The people. And so for me, the petition, we have to sign it. We have to build power. Like Mama's been sort of mentoring all of us on how to build in all these different ways and not to get so narrow on one way. And in that, I want to turn and talk to our people, to young people in Detroit. Seriously, if you're a rowdy kid in Detroit, we have a place for you. There's work for you to do. If you're a misfit out their crib, who are fighting with mom and dad, people can't find a place to go, chronic illness, can't find work, you know, there's a place for you. And I want to uplift the leadership of women in this moment. I want to uplift Piper. I want to uplift Mama Monica. I really want to uplift how Shay has helped us strategize around street teaming and safety in this time. A lot of what we're doing is Shay thinking through and offering some of the Riverwise strategy to us. I want to uplift Gijigad for holding so much of the care and the interrelational and the weaving work and the visioning work for us. Don't have to apologize for uplifting strong women, femme leadership in this time. And want to say that goes for, like what Piper was saying, everybody, every group of people, every class of oppressed people want to uplift your leadership and say that the time is now for you to move to the forward, to be our mountains, to be our rivers, to be our streams, you know. And the last thing I'll say is that as we move forward, I want us to meditate on how we can build power and relationship with everyone who's around us within arm's reach. And that the people are our funders. Funding is a hug. Funding can be someone loaning you some money. Funding is having a couch to crash on, a shoulder to cry on. Funding is that call when you're not sure if you can keep going. Funding is for me, funding is Mama Monica's words of encouragement constantly when we're tired. Funding is forgiveness. Funding is transformative justice processes and holding each other's hands. And it is resources. But the people who we're accountable to in this moment and who we love more than anything, who we uplift more than anything, the people who we shape our politics to, the people who we tailor our statements to, are those funders that are the people who fund us through love and the power of relationship. And so we want to just uplift that for the people out there who are not feeling like organizing is a home for them in Detroit. They don't have all the terms. You're not sure if you can sit through the meetings and make everyone feel cool and be polite. It's time for rowdy people to step up to the front. And now you get to be rowdy with a reason. And we're here for you, and we'll support you and uplift you every step of the way. So all power to the people, free the land, free the water. And I want to thank Oya for making today even happen and allowing us to speak and breathe. Thank everyone.
Well, thank you for that. So with that, I wanted to thank everyone. Thank you, Mama Monica, we the people of Detroit. Thank you, Baba Darrow, East Michigan Environmental Action Council, aka EMEAC. Thank you, Bryce Detroit, our African artist. Thank you, Shay Howell from the Bog Center and Riverwise. Thank you, Jeezy God, our beloved media strategist and media extraordinaire and street team leader. And also wanted to thank you, Reverend Paul, Mr. Architect. Wanted to thank you and thank everybody that's listening. For everybody that's listening and hung on, we really appreciate you. And those, even those that logged off, we appreciate y'all for listening. Share this, share the petition, let people know. You could go to We the People of Detroit and you will get some support. They have the water hotline. You also can sign the petition. We need you to share that petition. We need you to get that petition to as many people as possible. We need to have 2,000 signatures. I think we're at 13 right now. And we also need to have people understand that water is a human right, because the main reason that we have any of these fights right now is because that discrepancy right there is something that we really need to dig into. And it's not just the capitalist corporate people that are saying that water isn't a human right. It's also the people ourselves that really don't understand that water is our human right, and we do have the right to water. We want to honor that water affordability is something that we really need immediately. And there is a water affordability plan. You can dig into it on the We the People site as well. And very last thing, share that Frontline, a lot of our media, we're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And we're bringing you this live, as well as this amazing podcast that hopefully you got to check out our podcast, which is on SoundCloud. Just look up Frontline Detroit and look at Frontline Detroit on everything. Share our media, share these things, because we want you to understand the issues. We want you to understand the nuances of the issues, because the reason that we're doing all of this work is because we want all people to be free. And that's it. All people to be free. Water is free. And we want people to thrive and be able to live. And that's it. And that's our revolution. So with that, I know I said that I was going to end it, but I got to end it with our mentor and matriarch. So we the people of Detroit, take it away.
Piper, I think you said it, and so we just want to send everybody out, asking everyone to deputize themselves, get involved in your own life. No one's coming to save us. We've got to save ourselves and be a part of saving each other. So thank you so much, Frontline. You've been amazing. Everybody, Gidget God, Reverend Paul, Bryce Detroit, Piper, Pipes. Thank you so much. Love you all. Thanks, Shay.
All right, so if folks want to stick around for like 2 minutes, y'all don't have to stick on the stream, but if folks are still watching the stream, I'm gonna leave y'all with a little bit of music, because you know how we do. We need music for everything. So we'll do another live. Not sure when, because you know what I'm saying. We are people that needs to flow. So we got a lot of work to do. But we'll let you know. We'll try to let you know ahead of time when we do another live to break some of this stuff down for you again. Thanks again. and Frontline everything. Peace. So that's it, folks. We appreciate you. Tune back in to Frontline Detroit. We have the podcast. Check us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and maybe you'll see us on another live. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Share that petition. Peace.